Holy Jesus. Oh! I think this really is the slowest weapon in Bannerlord. Hey guys, Guiden here. Today I will show you how to create the most cursed weapons in Bannerlord. No, seriously. These things are abominations, and any noble that sponsors me to make one for them is truly insane. Speaking of sponsors, this video is sponsored by Kingdom Maker. Have you ever wanted affordable housing, go to large gatherings, or get married to a medieval waifu? Kingdom Maker is a free-to-play grand social RTS game on Android and iOS that has completely consumed the last 2 weeks of my life. Kingdom Maker combines RTS, RPG, and simulation gameplay to make a really immersive MMO-like experience in a medieval fantasy world. Featuring Total War-esque combat, Kingdom Maker is a grand social RTS game that features extremely customizable armies that you can spectate any battle happening in real time and even reinforce whoever you want. You can lead your noble family to victory through research, trade, combat, exploration, and marrying off your children to secure alliances with other players. I also enjoy the fact that the game doesn't take itself too seriously while taking its gameplay very seriously. So go try Kingdom Maker using my link in the description below on iOS and Android. Thanks to Kingdom Maker for sponsoring this video. Now that I have hopped into the smithy, we can get started. I also used a mod to unlock all of the weapon parts for me, so I got squared away. All in all, I'll be crafting, or at least trying to, 12 cursed weapons. One for each category to see if it's possible, and if it is, what weapons I can truly make cursed. The first weapon that I worked with was the dagger, turning it from a simple but effective weapon into something really unwieldy. I kept the original wooden tool grip and added one of those old school cane hooks to the bottom, and afterwards searched through the guards until I found the perfect one to make it look really gaudy. The finishing touches came from the blade. I took a throwing knife that was extremely skinny at the base and made it as small as possible, while enlarging all of the other parts to make it basically this.
I didn't really make my knife to cut anything.
Javelins ended up being one of the easier weapons to be cursed. First off, the literal tree branch looks so unaerodynamic that it's almost not funny. Almost. So I kept the tree branch and thought, well, if half of the weapon is literally a stick, why not make the other parts as fancy as possible? I found the perfect head that added 2 balls and a tip to the top of the branch, and just to be even more extra, I added an extender and another metal ball and point on the other side. I feel like I need to be careful with making a mace, or the spirit of Hammerman will haunt me. The mace only has 2 parts to work with, the handle and the hammerhead. Most of the handles looked really great, to be honest, but I found one that was even smaller than the wood handle we started with, and then I shrunk it to be even smaller. There were a ton of hammer parts that I thought looked absolutely hilarious, but the one that I thought was the best was this one, a wooden head with a bunch of spikes on it. I mean, what's more cursed than a weapon that you can barely use and makes you just as likely to stab yourself as much as your enemy? Now things get a little bit trickier. Like the mace, it only has the axe head and the handle, and most of the options actually look really good together. But I found a few ones that can make the most memey weapon. A bamboo grip with a ball and an oaken grip with a pointy bit. As for axe heads, I narrowed it down to a few, but my favorite was this very small looking blade, which I made even smaller. It kinda looks like the Chihuahua of axes, but I think this thing still has a ton of bite. Okay, remember when I said it was getting trickier? I lied. The one-handed sword has nearly 400 parts to work with, which means dozens of blades, grips, guards, and pommels. This one easily took me the longest to find something suitable and call it cursed. I thought curved blades had a lot of potential here and ended up with this sorta cool looking all-metal sword, but that was cool, not cursed. So I went from a curved blade to an extra curved blade, and chose a falx and enlarged it to be as big as possible. A two-handed blade on a one-handed sword. And then gave it this really ugly green marble handle and closed it off with this terrible looking pommel that was literally just 3 gold rings. I couldn't really imagine the work to put into making a sword like this, but then you just absolutely insult it by putting a wooden block on it. Okay, remember when I said I had a lot of options? That's not true anymore. The pike only has 2 handles, a long handle and an even longer handle. So I picked the even longer handle and started going through most of the tips, and honestly, a lot of them were very suitable and sensible choices, but ultimately, I decided to pick one of the farming equipment tools, a rake. So now, not only can I hit you really far with it, but I can also pick up leaves really far with it too. Sadly, throwing axes seem to get the short end of the shaft when it comes to crafting options. You only get 3 heads and 3 handles, and honestly, in any combination, it makes something that actually resembles a good weapon. I played around and this was the best I could do. Throwing knives actually get a decent amount of options, and I can choose between the blade, guard, handle, and pommel again. Throwing knives are known for being well balanced. Actually, I have no idea, I'm just assuming, so my goal was to make something extremely unbalanced. So I used a blade that looks like it's heavier on one side with a pommel that definitely looks like it doesn't help, and I slap a handle and guard on it like flex tape so I could just be done with this one. The two-handed axe ended up being one of the least cursed weapons that I made. I mean, I could have made a small bardish or a small two-handed bearded axe, but nothing really spoke to me. The fact that I could instead make a hoe that could hew a man in twain reminded me of that extra long rake that I just made earlier, and I went with it. I gave that hoe the very best handle money could buy, and we were off to the races. Do you think I should make a farmer weapons only playthrough? I think that could be a lot of fun. So, there's only 2 of each part to choose from, and 2 of the heads actually just use the same model. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. I really was expecting something more from a two-handed mace, is what I would say, but I meant to say absolutely hype because when I found out that there was a hammer in the two-handed polearm section, I knew that I can redeem the two-handed mace. Also, look at all that farm equipment to choose from. So let's pick a hammerhead and go through the accessories. The spear wing looks pretty cursed, but doesn't really add to my stats sadly, and was going to be my choice until I found this. This weird looking fur thing makes the hammer look like a sassy person with their hands on their hips. After picking that perfect combo, I grab the longest shaft possible and make it so big that I have to zoom out to fit the screen. All that's left was to add a literal spear to the other end of the weapon, and I had a contender for the best, or worst I guess, cursed weapon. It's a shame though, you can't switch between the hammer and the spear, but it is what it is. We made it to the end, and now we're going to finish strong with a two-handed sword, and I know exactly what I want to make. Since I made a one-handed sword earlier that was basically a two-handed sword in one hand, I wanted to do the same in reverse. So a one-handed sword used with 2 hands. So I searched for the smallest blade possible in the list and made it even smaller. Then I took the same guard from the dagger and the longest weapon handle that I could find, which also looked pretty damn sexy and gave a bunch of bonus stats, and combined these to make them as large as possible. Finally, I added a decent looking pommel to the bottom, and I genuinely couldn't tell if I made an amazing looking weapon or an absolutely terrible looking one. What I did know was that I could not wait to test these weapons out. What? Did you think this video was all crafting?
It's more an artisanal piece.
Holy Jesus. Oh! I think this really is the slowest weapon in Bannerlord. That was surprisingly effective. Well, anyway, guys, I didn't expect these weapons to be so good for the most part. And I think my next playthrough, I'll definitely be trying some cursed weapons out. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more content. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.